The Stoic path to mastery. In life, we are often faced with situations that challenge our emotional stability and our understanding of self-worth. One such scenario arises when we encounter individuals, particularly women, who may manipulate or play games with our emotions. These situations can be testing grounds for our resilience and self-control, where the teachings of Stoicism can offer profound guidance. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, encourages us to develop inner strength and emotional fortitude, to remain unshaken by external circumstances, and to live in accordance with reason and virtue. In dealing with emotional manipulation, it is not the woman herself that we must outsmart, but rather the internal chaos that such behavior may provoke within us. By adhering to Stoic principles, we learn to outsmart the destructive emotions that cloud our judgment and lead us astray. As Epictetus, a renowned Stoic philosopher, once said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." This mindset becomes our compass as we navigate the complexities of relationships, ensuring that we remain the masters of our own fate, unshaken by the actions of others. In this text, we will explore 4 Stoic strategies that empower us to maintain our composure, fortify our inner selves, and outsmart the emotional games that may be played against us. These strategies are not about manipulation or countering deception with deception. Rather, they are about transcending the superficial and cultivating an unassailable peace of mind. Chapter 1. Embrace the power of indifference. The first way to outsmart any emotional game is by embracing the Stoic concept of apatheia, or indifference to what lies outside our control. The actions and emotions of others are beyond our influence, and thus, they should not disturb our inner peace. Women who engage in manipulative behavior often seek to elicit a reaction, to make us feel uncertain, anxious, or needy. This behavior is effective only if we allow our tranquility to be disturbed by it. As Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic emperors, wisely noted, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In practice, embracing indifference means that we do not allow ourselves to be swayed by the highs and lows of another person's behavior. Whether she is affectionate one moment and distant the next, our internal state remains constant, serene, and unperturbed. This does not mean that we become cold or unfeeling, but rather that we understand the futility of investing our emotional well-being in the unpredictable actions of others. By practicing indifference, we deny the manipulator the satisfaction of controlling our emotions. We remain grounded, fully aware that our worth and happiness do not hinge on the approval or affection of another. This is the first step in outsmarting any emotional game, removing the power that others may hold over us by mastering our own responses. As we cultivate this mindset, we begin to see through the games played by others. What was once a source of distress becomes almost irrelevant. We recognize that the true battle is within, and by winning this internal struggle, we become impervious to the superficial tactics that others may employ. Chapter 2. Cultivate emotional resilience through self-control. The second way to outsmart emotional games is by cultivating self-control, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. Emotional resilience is not about suppressing feelings, but rather about understanding and mastering them, so they do not dictate our actions. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher and statesman, taught that he who is brave is free. True bravery, in the Stoic sense, comes from the ability to remain steadfast and rational in the face of emotional turmoil. When confronted with manipulative behavior, we must resist the urge to react impulsively. Instead, we should take a step back, observe our emotions without judgment, and choose our response deliberately. This practice requires a deep understanding of the self. We must be aware of our triggers, those situations or behaviors that provoke strong emotional reactions within us. By recognizing these triggers, we can prepare ourselves to respond with composure rather than letting our emotions take the lead. Imagine a scenario where a woman you care for suddenly becomes distant, perhaps not responding to your messages or canceling plans without explanation. The natural response might be to feel hurt, anxious, or even angry. But a Stoic recognizes that these feelings, while real, are not beneficial. They cloud judgment and lead to actions that we may later regret. Instead, we apply the principle of self-control. We acknowledge the emotions as they arise, but do not act on them. We choose to respond in a manner consistent with our values and reason. This might mean giving the other person space, not out of spite, but out of respect for both their autonomy and our own dignity. By maintaining self-control, we ensure that our actions are governed by reason, not emotion. We become unshakable, and in doing so, we outsmart those who seek to destabilize us. They expect us to react, to become entangled in the web of emotional games. When we do not, we break the cycle and take control of the narrative. Chapter 3. Strengthen your character by practicing virtue. The third strategy to outsmart emotional manipulation is to focus on the cultivation of virtue. In Stoicism, virtue is the highest good, and it is through the practice of virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance that we find true happiness and fulfillment. When dealing with someone who plays games with our emotions, it is easy to become consumed by thoughts of how to win or gain the upper hand. However, a Stoic understands that the true victory lies not in defeating the other, but in remaining true to oneself and one's principles. Virtue alone is the true good, said Epictetus, emphasizing that external circumstances, including the behavior of others, should never lead us to compromise our moral integrity. If a woman is playing games, we do not respond in kind. We do not manipulate, deceive, or seek revenge. Instead, we act in accordance with our values, treating others with respect, honesty, and fairness, even when they do not extend the same courtesy to us. This approach may seem counterintuitive in a world where power plays and manipulation are often seen as the norm. But by adhering to virtue, we rise above the pettiness of emotional games. We demonstrate that our worth is not dependent on the actions or approval of others, but on our adherence to a higher standard of conduct. In practical terms, this might mean walking away from a toxic situation with grace, choosing to end a relationship that undermines your sense of self, or simply refusing to engage in the back and forth of emotional games. By doing so, we not only protect our peace of mind, but also set an example of strength and integrity. Through the consistent practice of virtue, we build a character that is resilient and unassailable. We become the masters of our destiny, impervious to the attempts of others to sway us from our path. This is the ultimate form of outsmarting, remaining steadfast in our commitment to live a life of virtue, regardless of external challenges. Chapter 4. Seek inner fulfillment and let go of attachment. The final strategy in outsmarting emotional games is perhaps the most profound. Seeking inner fulfillment and letting go of attachment to external outcomes. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom, which teaches us that true contentment comes not from what we possess or achieve, but from the peace we find within ourselves. Attachment to the affections, opinions, or actions of others is a primary source of suffering. When we rely on external validation for our sense of worth, we become vulnerable to manipulation. Those who play games with our emotions do so precisely because they sense this attachment and seek to exploit it. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If we are constantly thinking about how to win someone's approval or avoid their disapproval, we are placing our happiness in their hands. The Stoic way is to reclaim this power by focusing on what truly matters: our inner state, our thoughts, and our actions. This is not to say that relationships are unimportant, but rather that they should not define us. A Stoic recognizes that all relationships are impermanent, subject to change, and ultimately beyond our control. What we can control is how we respond to these changes and how we cultivate a sense of inner peace that is independent of external circumstances. Letting go of attachment means accepting that we cannot force someone to care for us or behave in a certain way. It means understanding that our worth is not diminished by the actions of others. By letting go, we free ourselves from the emotional chains that others may try to place upon us. This freedom is the greatest victory of all. When we no longer seek to control or manipulate, when we are content with our own company and our own thoughts, we become truly invincible. Emotional games lose their power over us, and we become the masters of our own fate. The Stoic's path to emotional mastery. Outsmarting women who play games with your heart is not about deception or manipulation. It is about mastering the self. Through the practice of indifference, self-control, virtue, and the pursuit of inner fulfillment, we transcend the superficial and cultivate a deep, unshakable peace. The wisdom of Stoicism teaches us that the only true power we possess is over our own minds. When we embrace this power, we become impervious to the actions and games of others.